Hello, fifth graders. Today we're going to take a look at Chapter 2, Lesson 7, thinking about the distributive property. So we were thinking about that in the last lesson, and I thought I was going to read a definition. Then I wasn't happy with the definition that gave you that said something like, we'll talk about it later. So here is later. First of all, distributive property allows you to multiply a sum by a number. Okay, to do so, multiply each addend by the number. So if I break apart, for instance, right here, perhaps this had originally been 3 times 7, and they broke 7 apart into 5 plus 2. Then you need to multiply the 3 times the 5 and the 3 times the 2. You could also add those back up and do 3 times 7, but if they're larger numbers, what if it was 3 times 32? Then maybe you're doing 3 times 30 plus 2. And then it makes more sense perhaps to break up the number into its place value parts. This right here is another way to write it. 3 times 5 plus 3 times 2. Okay, both of those are representative of how we might use the distributive property. So I've given you a little chart here that explains it also. So if you see right here, we have 3 times 7, and the whole, if we just do it, 3 times 7 equals 21. Here is that array, but we could also divide it up and do 3 times 5 and 3 times 2, and then add those up. 15 plus 6 is 21. Still the same number of squares, just thinking about it in a different way. I'm going to erase all my marks here so you have a nice clean reference. And let's look at example number 1. For a field trip, 42 students each paid $3 for transportation. Use mental math and the distributive property to find how much money was collected altogether. So here we can see that they took 42 and broke it up into 40 and 2. Then they can multiply 3 times 40, which is 120, and 3 times 2, which is 6. Then we just need to add those. But let's catch up with how we write distributive property. So here we have 3 times 42. That could also be written as 3 times 40. Fix my 4 a little bit there. Times 2. Okay? Notice the parentheses. So technically I would read this as 3 times the quantity of 40 plus 2. Or I can break it up putting parentheses around each part. So 3 times 40 plus 3 times 2. Okay? So after we've multiplied, 3 times 4 is 12. There's a 0. So 3 times 40 is 120. And 3 times 2 is 6. So we see that 3 times 42 is 126. So $126 was collected for the field trip. Let's look at example number 2. Find 7 times 26 mentally using the distributive property. So we'll show the steps of what we're doing in our brain. We're going to break up 26 into its place value parts, which would be 20 and 6, because there are 2 10s and 6 1s. So we see 7 times the quantity of 20 plus 6. Or we can rewrite that as 7 times 20 plus 7 times 6. What is 7 times 20? Well, 7 times 2 is 14. There's 1 0 and 20. And 7 times 6 is, again, remember, 7 times 5, we know that one. 7 times 5 is 35. 6 can be thought of as a 5 and a 1. 35, 40, 41. Oh, something's wrong there. 7 times 6 is 42. What did Mrs. Munyon do wrong? 7 times 5 is 35. Oh, I should have skip counted by sevens. Silly Miss Munyon. All right. So 7 is a 5 and a 2. 35, 40, 42. All right. So a 0 and a 2 is 2. A 4 and a 4 is 8. And we have 100. So 7 times 6 is 182. Let's try another one. Find each product mentally using the distributive property. Show the steps that you used. Here we have 5 times 18. Let's break 18 up into its place value parts. So we'll do 5 times the quantity of 10 plus 8, which is the same as 5 times 10 plus 5 times 8. 5 times 10 is 50, and 5 times 8 is 40. 50 plus 40 is 90. So 5 times 18 is 90. Let's do another one. 2 times the quantity of 2 times 21. Let's break apart 21. And we will write that as 20 2 tens plus 1. So we have 2 times the quantity of 20 plus 1. Or we can write that as 2 times 20 plus 2 times 1. 2 times 20 is 40, and 2 times 1 is 2. So the answer is 42. 2 times 21 is 42. Nice. All right. Hopefully you're getting the hang of that. It might feel a little uncomfortable at first, moving from writing everything out in, what was that form where we use this right here. This was probably very comfortable for you, but you don't want to have to draw pictures every time you solve a math problem. And the point of partial products is to be able to do the distributive property in your head. In your head, it's going to look more like this. All right? Oh, look at the cute little puppy dog. He says, how'd you do that? How did you do that? Let me know if you have any questions. Go try the independent practice. Bye-bye.